Ndị be anyị kenekwanụ m unu. Anyị sị ka ụbọchị nke taa mara na anyị na mma. Anyị sị ka nke onye chiri ya zerekwa. Dịka o si dị ya bụ Eastern News 24 ka anyị si na-wetara nye bụ ozi gbasịta maka ebe ife na-eme n'obodo nọ n'ime ya, dịka unu anụ ka o si ada, gbasịta maka nnwere onwe a na-azọ n'ala Igbo, maka mkpagbu na ajọ omume a na-emesi ndị Igbo. Ebe ife ka anyị na-wetara n'iru akwụkwọ ọzọ dịka ibia bụ na nke ụbọchị izi gị na-esore kabarụ ketụsa ya bụ ozi. If I will tell you Nero according to one of the Biafran activists, quote, Biafrans celebrate that the God of Umuchineke is really working, as they work, as they show. As American citizens testify in favor of Mazi Simon Ekpa, this is a very big, as in this is a massive good news. Sometimes you don't know why, onye akpọrọ ga-egbu gị were ike ịzọ gị ka napụ ịkala unu mmọnwụ ụmụnne m gee ya bụ ife anyị ji maka ya wee bịa wetara unu nnukwu ọpdeti n'iru akwụkwọ. Ị ga-eme na anyị bụ ịtụsa ya bụ ozi ebe ọ bụla ị nọ isi na-anụ ọnụ m, tụsa ya bụ ozi ka oru ụmụnne anyị aka dịka ihe ga-esi ya bụ ife ri ya tịa ya bụ ife niile a nwanne anyị wetara unu ụbọchị nke taa. All right, over to you, sir.
Every single event that unraveled in the Pajame District Court today, we have to do a quick summary of what happened yesterday. Because the video released yesterday around 8 p.m. was inconclusive. That is, we did not finish the video. So before we start with the event that played out in court today, we have to do a quick summary and continue from yesterday's event. Well, just in case you don't know, a testifier codenamed T3 was called upon by the prosecuting lawyer to come up and take the stance and testify against Simon. And this T3, or the testifier, happens to be a financial officer of Simon in his company known as Simon & Co. OY. Yes, so the financial officer of Simon's company, Simon & Co. OY, was called upon yesterday to testify against Simon's financial records. In his testimonies, he claimed that Simon at some point ordered for arms and ammunition from the dark web. Yes, just in case you don't know what the dark web is a part of the internet where you cannot use Google and other search engines to access. That is to say, you cannot access this site using our normal browser and our normal search engines. If you want to access the dark web, you must install a particular browser. So this testifier claims that Simon accessed the dark web and he purchased arms and ammunition that he sent to Nigeria, that he sent to the southeastern region of Nigeria, that resulted to series of insecurities in that part of the country. Interestingly, Simon's lawyer had to cross-examine T3, or this testifier, and it became clear that this individual, this T3, who happens to be, once upon a time, was a financial officer of Simon, also purchased items from the dark web. So let's go back to the courtroom and see how every single thing played out yesterday, and then we are going to jump into today's video and give you a better picture and clarity. So T3 was still in the stance, that is, the financial officer of Simon was still in the stance, and Simon's lawyer was cross-examining him. And Simon's lawyer asked, have you at any point audit or edit the company's transactions? That is, have you at any point audit or edit Simon's company's financial records and transactions? Yes, replied T3. Simon's lawyer continued by saying, is it possible that you, T3, can buy bitcoins with the company's money? Answer yes or no. Yes, replied T3. At this point, the prosecuting lawyer had to jump in by saying, my lord, this man is trying to put blames on my witness without any basis or evidence. I see it as a form of bully. The cross-examination should discontinue. That is, the prosecuting lawyer is asking the judge to discontinue any form of cross-examination coming from Simon's lawyer. I hope this is actually very, very clear. So back in the courtroom, the judge said no. This cross-examination coming from Simon's lawyer must continue and it must be concluded. He also went a step further to claim that Simon's lawyer has the right to cross-examine this witness. Moving on swiftly, Simon's lawyer continued by thanking the judge. He said, thank you, my lord. I shall continue with my cross-examination. Well, let's do a quick analysis of what is currently happening here in the court of law, just in case you don't understand. Right now, Simon's lawyer is cross-examining a witness codenamed T3, who, like I said, happens to be the financial officer of Simon. This financial officer, over the past couple of months or years, had access to Simon's banking details, his transactions, and so on and so forth. And the lawyer from Simon's camp is trying to let the court know that this witness, T3, the financial officer of Simon, is the individual who purchased arms and not Simon. Hope you're understanding what is currently going on here. So let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit. Simon's lawyer asked T3, have you ever purchased Bitcoin with your personal account? Yes. Simon's lawyer asked him, have you ever accessed the deep web or the dark web before at any point? Yes, replied T3. Have you ever made any purchase on the deep web? Answer yes or no. T3 took a deep breath and replied, yes, I have purchased items from the dark web. Which item did you buy from the dark web? Replied Simon's lawyer. A mystery box, replied T3. And Simon's lawyer asked, what are the contents of this mystery box? T3 replied by saying, I've forgotten most of the items because I got this mystery box in early 2024, so I've forgotten most of the items I received. Simon's lawyer continued by saying, did you get anything dangerous? It all depends, replied T3. What do you mean? Replied Simon's lawyer. Well, once you buy a mystery box from the dark web, you can't determine the content of that box. The last mystery box I bought, I saw bullets inside. Simon's lawyer replied by saying, do you have license to own firearms? No, replied T3. Simon's lawyer replied by saying, so you ordered a mystery box from the dark web and found bullets inside. Is that correct? Yes, replied T3. Did you report to the police? Asked Simon's lawyer. No, I did not, replied T3. Simon's lawyer replied by saying, my lord, as you can see, this man who claims to testify against my client has committed a series of offenses. I doubt if we can take his testimony seriously. Simon's lawyer now turned to the prosecuting lawyer and asked, do you have anything to say? The lawyer said, at this point, no. So what do we think is currently going on here? As you can see, a witness who came before the court of law to testify that Simon bought and sent arms to Nigeria is also guilty of keeping bullets in his possession. To own or keep bullets in Finland, you must have a valid permit or license for the firearm that uses those bullets. This is issued by the police. So T3 as a testifier has committed an offense and will be tried in subsequent days. That's what we believe. So the question here is, why did the prosecuting lawyer fail to do a thorough and in-depth surveillance and investigation on his testifiers before bringing them to the court of law? This is a case of full negligence. The prosecuting lawyer should have cross-examined his witness before any court proceedings will be done. Well, let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit afterwards. Back to the courtroom, T3 was asked to leave the stands and report himself to the nearest police station. And now let's look at what transpired in court today. Today being the 3rd of June of 2025. The court session kicked off at about 11:45 a.m. with the two legal counsel team in attendance. The session started with the prosecuting lawyer asking the judge for permission to bring up his fourth testifier. He claimed that his fourth testifiers are officers from the National Bureau of Investigations. Simon's lawyer objected by saying, my lord, the prosecuting legal counsel has brought in 3 testifiers already. I think it's only fair and just if I bring up my very first witness to take the stand. The judge gave Simon's lawyer the green light. Feel free to bring in your next witness. Simon's lawyer continued by saying, my very first witness is a member of the BRGI and also a very close friend to Simon. My witness will be codenamed Peace. Well, let's do a quick analysis. What do we think is going on here at this point in time? Simon's lawyer has brought a witness, and this witness is coming from the BRGI. This is a smart move because this witness happens to be a close friend of Simon and a citizen of the USA. So bringing in a witness from a Western world is a benchmark, and also bringing in a witness from the most powerful nation of the world is huge. So let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit. Simon's lawyer asked the witness codenamed Peace, who are you to my client? Peace replied by saying, this man is a very close friend of mine. He is a peace-loving man. Simon's lawyer asked, what do you know about my client? Peace replied by saying, I know for a fact that back in 2023, Simon was given a Peace Ambassador Award in Helsinki, Finland, for his personality and character. The award was presented at the Africa Day event celebrating the anniversary of African Union at the Kaiser Cultural Center in Helsinki, Finland. I know this man to be philanthropist in nature and also a helper who have helped a lot of souls in and around Nigeria. So let's do a quick analysis of what is currently happening in the court of law at this particular point in time. As you can see, the witness called upon by Simon's lawyer has been prepared accordingly. Unlike other witnesses we have seen so far, this witness has presented the positive sides of Simon as a basis of conversations. This is an intelligent move coming from the witness codenamed Peace. So let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit. Simon's lawyer continued by saying, "You say you know this man pretty well." "Yes," replied Peace. "Have you ever seen him carry out any terror acts? I mean, have you ever seen him disobeying the laws of Finland?" "Not at all," replied Peace. "In fact, this man is also a top politician from this country who have served this country in all ramifications." Simon's lawyer continued by saying, "Are you a member of the BRGI?" "Yes," replied Peace. "What are the activities of this group?" Peace replied by saying, "BRGI actively pursues for the independence of the USB through diplomatic channels and international engagement. They have undertaken efforts to gain recognition and support from other nations and organizations." At this point, the prosecuting lawyer got really upset and asked the court to allow him cross-examine Peace before Simon's lawyer continues. The judge asked Simon's lawyer, "Is that okay by you?" "Yes," replied Simon's lawyer. So let's do a quick analysis to see what is currently happening right here in the court of law. As you can see, the prosecuting lawyer isn't happy with the responses coming from Peace. He feels like the questions and answers are too rehearsed. Now he wants to destabilize Peace, the testifier, with very, very intimidating questions. So let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit. The prosecuting lawyer asked Peace, "How close are you to the suspect?" "He is my friend," replied Peace. "In what capacity?" asked the prosecuting lawyer. "What do you mean?" Peace said. Prosecuting lawyer said, "You claim to be a close friend to Simon, right? How close are you to him?" Peace replied by saying, "We worked under the BRGI. That's how we became friends." The prosecuting lawyer continued by saying, "Have you donated to the USB fundraising before?" "Why do you ask?" replied Peace. The prosecuting lawyer followed by saying, "Kindly reply yes or no." Peace replied by saying, "Kindly ask your questions again." The prosecuting lawyer smiled and said, "Have you engaged in BRGI fundraising before, whether by donating or by organizing?" Peace replied, "Yes." The prosecuting lawyer said, "Yes to what, please?" And Peace replied by saying, "You asked me to reply with yes or no. I just told you yes. What do you want from me? If you want to ask questions, ask them properly and allow me to answer properly." So let's do some quick analysis of what is currently happening right here in the court of law. The testifier codenamed Peace has shown that he or she isn't scared of the prosecuting lawyer in any way, shape or form. And that is why he or she has been putting the prosecuting lawyer on the run. So let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit. Back in the courtroom, the prosecuting lawyer said, "I will ask you again, have you donated to the BRGI fundraising?" "No," replied Peace. "Have you organized a fundraising system for the BRGI?" "Yes," replied Peace. "Do you know that fundraising has been used for the procurement of arms?" "No," replied Peace. "I'm actually hearing this for the very first time today. Are you aware that negligence is not an excuse?" "What do you mean?" asked Peace. The prosecuting lawyer followed suit by saying, "You have assisted this man in the purchase of arms in Nigeria." Testifier Peace replied, "Are you saying that funds raised were channeled to arms deal?" "Yes," replied the prosecuting lawyer. "Are you saying that Simon here is an arm dealer?" "Yes," replied the prosecuting lawyer. "Do you have your facts and evidence?" The prosecuting lawyer said, "You are not here to cross-examine me. It should be the reverse. I'm here to actually cross-examine you because you claim to be a friend of this man, a suspect. So you keep all your questions to yourself. What you have to do right now and right here is just to answer all of my questions. Is that clear?" Peace replied by saying, "Yes, it is very, very clear, but I need more clarity based on the context of your questions." As you can see, this testifier brought in, the very first testifier brought in by Simon's lawyer happens to be a very, very knowledgeable person. This individual knows how to answer questions, and this individual knows how to analyze questions and know the possible outcome or the possible reasons why the questions were asked in the very first place. This is a very good one coming from the very first testifier from the Simon's camp. Let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit. The prosecuting lawyer got really angry with the way and manner Peace, the witness codenamed Peace, was asking him questions because he felt like he is the person or the individual meant to ask questions to the testifier and not the other way around. So the prosecuting lawyer said, please don't ask me any other questions. You are here to answer my questions. So answer them with yes or no. And that is all you need to tell me at this point in time. Peace replied by saying, okay, I clearly understand you and I will reply with just yes or no. And that is it. The prosecuting lawyer asked, have you visited this man in his home? Have you visited him in his private home before? Peace replied, no. Have you met this man in private before? Please ask your questions properly. What do you mean by in private? Do you mean like in a sectional meeting? Or do you mean meeting him one-on-one? Or do you mean meeting him in his office? Or what do you mean by private? Because the word private can be anything. The lawyer from the government said, have you met this guy before? Just you and him having a conversation? Peace, the testifier, said, yes, I've met him before, one-on-one, and we've had conversations. The lawyer said, please stick by my instructions. Answer with yes or no. I don't want any other clarification until I ask you to do. Peace replied by saying, yes, I understand. The prosecuting lawyer asked Peace, have you in any way, shape or form aided this man in taking out any decisions? Peace replied, yes, clearly I'm a member of the BRGI. We are a collective team and administration. We aid each other in taking out decisions. The prosecuting lawyer got really angry by saying, I asked you to say, answer me with yes or no. Why are you giving me a lot of stories? The prosecuting lawyer got really angry and said, my lord, I'm done with cross-examining this person and I want us to move on to our next agenda. Let's do a quick summary and a quick analysis of what is currently going on here. As you can all clearly see, this testifier known as Peace or codenamed Peace happens to be a very brilliant and a very smart individual. This person knows how to make the lawyer from the government or the prosecuting lawyer feel a certain kind of way. And for a fact, the prosecuting lawyer has no points. You can't just meet up somebody who said he's from the BRGI and you're asking questions. Have you met this man in private? Have you contributed? These are all questions we know the answers already. As a member of the BRGI, we believe that this person known as Peace, should have or must have some way or somehow aided in decision making. This individual known as Peace must have somehow, some way meet Simon in private. So why is this guy asking very, very funny questions in the court of law? And at the same time, he got really angry with the way and manner Peace, the testifier, replied to all of his funny questions. Well, let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit. In the courtroom, the lawyer, Simon's lawyer, said, my lord, as you can see, the prosecuting lawyer has no points in this particular conversation. The prosecuting lawyer has been looking for ways and methods to bully my client, but luckily my client is very well informed, and that is why he or she has put up a very strong fight against this man's bully. So Simon's lawyer asked the judge, permit me to cross-examine my testifier. I have a couple of questions to ask this testifier before we move to our next and different agenda for the day. Simon's lawyer asked the testifier codenamed Peace, what can you say about the prosecuting lawyer? What do you think is his agenda? Do you think this man is coming from a point of fact or evidence? Or do you think this man is trying to put blame on somebody without having facts and data? Peace replied by saying, as you all can see, the prosecuting lawyer is trying to bring out info from me that I don't even have. His questions are not direct. His questions are not clear. His questions to me feels like something that will come from an interrogation room. I don't know why he's asking some funny questions. He should ask me questions that are very clear to answer with yes or no. He asked me to answer with yes or no, but he has been asking questions that are big or ambiguous in nature that needs clarity. These are the words coming from Peace, the testifier. Wow, this is a massive response because nobody in the court session so far, no testifier from the court so far has been courageous like this testifier known as Peace. Wow, this person put up a good showing. Well, the whole court session continued and Simon's lawyer asked Peace a lot of questions, which the testifier answered brilliantly and very, very clear. And at the end, Simon's lawyer asked the judge to grant Peace the permission to leave the stands. And Peace left the stands and the prosecuting lawyer said he wanted to bring in the next witness. And this witness happens to be his fourth testifier, which are officers from the National Bureau of Investigation. This is where things are going to get really, really intense. This is where Simon's lawyer will need the help of an assistant, because he don't know the documents, facts and data that the NBI are going to present in the courtroom. Yes, and they scheduled a different date for a court hearing, and we believe it's going to be tomorrow or next. But if the whole court hearing happens tomorrow, we're going to definitely give you a video, a detailed breakdown of everything that transpired in the courtroom. So do well to subscribe and turn on post notifications to get every single detail coming out from this court case. Anyway, just in case you missed our video from yesterday, that video will give you a better understanding of what happened or transpired today. So you definitely have to watch the video coming from yesterday, where, like I said, the financial officer of Simon was brought before the courtroom to testify and give info about Simon's financial records. That happens to be a very, very interesting conversation, and it's something you shouldn't miss at any point in time. Yes, so you have to go back and watch a video released yesterday by 8 p.m. so you can understand this particular video which you just finished watching. So if you want to watch the video from yesterday and get full updates, a better picture and a clearer illustrative idea, do well to click on